Many consider the Action 5 Pro to be the best action camera at the moment. And it now has some serious competition. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 is finally here. Both cameras have a new large sensor and a new processor, and it's clear that both manufacturers want to offer the best action camera this year. So which is really the better camera? There are 15 categories and 1 point for the winner of a category. By the way, there will be another video with a detailed comparison with the GoPro Hero 13. And we start with the most important category, the image quality. In this first category, we mainly take a look at the colors, contrast and exposure of the two cameras. I took a large number of comparison shots for this. As you may have noticed, there have been a lot of discussions about sponsored tests in recent months. I bought the DJI Action 5 Pro myself. The Ace Pro 2 was provided to me by Insta360, but this video contains no additional paid sponsorship. I will comment on the shots that follow and give my take on them, but I always recommend you make up your own mind about what you see here. To help you do that, I'll show you as many different comparison shots in as many different situations as possible. And I also hope that you will write your own opinion in the comments. Both cameras have a new and relatively large 1/1.3-inch sensor. And both cameras have a fast and modern processor. But Insta360 has not only installed one processor in the Ace Pro 2, but actually two processors. One of which is only responsible for the image processing. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 therefore has twice as much processor power as the first Ace Pro. Apart from this, the two cameras also differ in that DJI has reduced the bitrate in the default settings of the Action 5 Pro, probably also to extend battery life. This results in smaller files, but can also lead to compression artifacts. DJI only introduced the option of a higher bitrate on the Action 5 Pro several weeks after the release. Personally, however, I find other differences in this comparison more important. For example, both cameras produce an HDR image in the standard settings. This means that different exposures are used to create the final image. Only the Ace Pro 2 allows you to deactivate this HDR feature if you prefer a more natural look. This is not possible with the Action 5 Pro. We will come to the dynamic range and battery life a little later. From a purely color perspective, the shots look very similar at first glance. Here I filmed with the Ace Pro 2 in the standard color profile. While the Ace Pro 2 offers several color profiles, the Action 5 Pro only has one proper color profile. And as you can see here, there are shots in the standard settings that are hardly distinguishable from each other. Probably the biggest difference in these shots is that the Action 5 Pro uses slightly more blue tones. This also makes the white of the clouds look a little bluish. The Ace Pro 2 produces slightly more natural colors overall. You can see the difference very clearly in this shot, but that's not always the case. There are also shots where the difference is hardly noticeable. What is noticeable, however, is that the Ace Pro 2 in the background in particular, for example in the clouds, shows more detail and contrast. You can see that clearly here. And what the Ace Pro 2 often manages better is the exposure in difficult lighting situations, such as here where the light is coming from behind. In the standard settings, the Ace Pro 2 adjusts the exposure to the face and therefore exposes the face better, even though it protects the highlights equally well. If you want to edit the colors of your shots yourself, both cameras offer a log profile, but only the log profile of the DJI Action 5 Pro has a color depth of 10 bits. The standard color profile of the Action 5 also allows you to shoot with 10 bit if required. 10 bit only gives you an advantage if you want to edit the colors of your shot heavily, and in this case the Action 5 has an advantage. On the other hand, unlike the Action 5 Pro, the Ace Pro 2 offers several additional color profiles that can be activated directly on the camera and can save you the trouble of color grading. I personally find Leica Natural particularly cool, as it creates a very high contrast and cinematic look. Apart from the standard color profile, it's my favorite color profile. And I noticed something else. Both cameras cause lens flares when the light source is in the frame, but the lens flares on the DJI Action 5 really don't look good. Depending on the shooting situation, this is a clear disadvantage, and the cooperation with Leica when developing the lens has paid off for Insta360. To summarize, the look of the two cameras is very similar, but the DJI Action 5 Pro has slightly more blue tones. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 often exposes better, especially especially in backlit situations, and doesn't produce such ugly lens flares. HDR can be deactivated. The DJI Action 5 Pro is better suited for heavy color grading, but if you prefer to use ready-made looks, the Ace Pro is the better choice. Especially if you're not interested in color grading, the Ace Pro 2 has a slight advantage overall. But since I know that many people want a 10-bit color profile, I give both cameras 1 point. In my opinion, an action camera should have an extremely wide field of view. This is the only way to achieve an immersive look when taking POV shots, and only with a very wide lens can you film yourself doing sports. The Action 5 Pro and the Ace Pro 2 have a similarly wide field of view, although the lens of the Ace Pro 2 at 157 degrees is a little wider than that of the Action 5 Pro. This has an effect on all settings. Whether ultra-wide, action view or D-warp, the image of the Ace Pro 2 is slightly wider than that of the Action 5 Pro. And that's not all. With the free-frame video mode, the Ace Pro 2 also has a very special feature. The images from the sensor are saved directly. You can then freely select the field of view in post in the app. For example, whether you prefer to use the shot in D-warp or in action view. And with clarity zoom, you can shoot with a zoom factor of 2 with only a slight loss of quality. This is made possible by the high resolution sensor. This gives you a fully usable additional focal length. It's interesting to note that DJI also advertises a digital 2x zoom. However, you can see from this comparison shot that this is a simple digital zoom and the result is not comparable. Overall, this category clearly goes to the Ace Pro 2. Not so clear for me is the result when it comes to dynamic range. As I said, both cameras shoot in HDR in the standard settings, and the dynamic range of both cameras is excellent. There are hardly any burnt out highlights. I couldn't really notice any significant differences. Yes, depending on the situation, one camera or the other shows a little more detail in the shadows. The only advantage that the Ace Pro has in this context is that you can switch off the HDR processing if you feel that the shots look a little unrealistic. This is not possible on the Action 5 Pro. For me, it's a draw. 1 point for both cameras. Only the Ace Pro 2 is able to take shots in 8K, and unlike the first Ace Pro, you can now take shots in 8K at up to 30 frames per second. This makes the 8K mode fully usable. That doesn't mean that I would always shoot in 8K with the Ace Pro 2. 8K results in an extremely detailed image, and on a high resolution monitor you can see the difference to 4K very clearly. But since 8K is not suitable for HDR processing or low light and results in relatively large files, I would only use 8K in special situations. In this comparison shot, you can see that the 8K image from the Ace Pro 2 has significantly more detail than the 4K image from the Action 5. And interestingly, even the 4K image from the Ace Pro 2 has more detail than a shot from the Action 5 in 4K. This can be clearly seen at a magnification of 500%. The category, resolution and details goes to the Ace Pro 2. Both cameras have a relatively large sensor for an action camera. This is mainly to be able to take better shots in low light. Even with an action camera, you want to be able to take decent shots in low light conditions from time to time. And the Action 5 Pro has a new shooting mode, the Super Night mode, which promises better image quality in low light. The Ace Pro 2 counters with Pure Video Mode Plus, which promises even better image quality in low light conditions compared to the first Ace Pro. Low light is an important category for many users. So which camera really takes the better shots in low light? At first glance, both cameras take really good shots for an action camera. Because one thing must be clear, it's already very dark here, and these types of camera are certainly not made specifically for these conditions. And you can see differences between the two shots. The Ace Pro 2 produces much more vivid colors in low light. This is particularly noticeable in indoor shots in artificial light, as we can see here in this shot of bouldering. It's interesting to note that the Ace Pro 2 also exposes much brighter here. When it's very dark, the Ace Pro 2 manages to protect the very bright highlights better, and in particular, it produces less image noise in the darker areas of the image. Take a look at my jacket in this shot, for example. The differences are clearly visible. Even though I think that the Action 5 Pro also takes very good shots in low light, the low light category clearly goes to the Ace Pro 2. I don't see any particular differences when it comes to slow motion shots. Both cameras are capable of recording in 4K at 120 frames per second, and the results are excellent, although the shot from the Ace Pro 2 is slightly sharper. Both cameras are also able to take slow motion shots at 240 frames per second in 1080, and while the shots in 4K 120 are great, these shots are relatively poor on both cameras and only usable for special situations. The shots from the Ace Pro 2 are even softer than those from the Action 5 Pro. For me, this is a draw. 1 point for both cameras. The same applies to image stabilization. Both cameras are able to stabilize even intensive movements well. Neither in the standard settings nor with the improved Stabilization or Rocksteady Plus can I see a really relevant difference. 1 point for both cameras.
A recording consists of more than just an image. The audio is an important part of it, and Insta360 has come up with something very special when it comes to audio. The Ace Pro 2 has a new removable wind guard on the front. And this has decisive advantages, because it significantly reduces the wind noise. Even with this recording of the voice during vlogging, you can hear the advantage in the background noise very well. But now let's listen to a comparison recording while biking. Then you will see what I mean by the advantages of the wind guard.
In my opinion, the quality of the voice recording in a windless environment is comparable. However, as the wind guard will be a decisive advantage for many, the audio quality category goes to the Ace Pro 2. I hope you could see from all the comparison shots that I've tried to make an objective judgment and to back this up with comparison footage, and have not tried to put forward unfounded opinions. And the Ace Pro 2 has won many of the previous categories. But compared to the Action 5 Pro, the Ace Pro 2 also has a few relevant disadvantages. And perhaps the biggest is the body, which is larger than that of the Action 5 Pro, at least if you use the Action 5 Pro without the frame. If you install the frame on the Action 5 Pro, you can also mount it vertically. The frame also provides additional protection. The Action 5 Pro is waterproof up to 20 meters, even without an additional housing, while the Ace Pro 2 is only waterproof up to 12 meters. And yes, the lens cover can be easily removed from both cameras, including the Ace Pro 2. Perhaps the biggest shortcoming of the first Ace Pro has thus been eliminated. Nevertheless, this category goes to the Action 5 Pro. Probably the most important reason for the larger form factor of the Ace Pro 2 is the flip-up display. In my opinion, it's also one of the most important differentiating criteria between these two cameras. Compared to the previous models, it has been improved and slightly enlarged on both cameras. In contrast to the Ace Pro 2, the Action 5 Pro also has a small display on the front, which also has touch functionality and can be used to operate the camera. But of course the framing can be assessed much better via the large flip-up display of the Ace Pro 2. The flip-up display also makes the Ace Pro 2 a great camera for vlogging, and it can not only be folded up completely, but also only partially or by 90 degrees. For example, to check the framing when taking a shot close to the ground. I also find it important that the resolution of the display has been significantly improved compared to the first Ace Pro. The display of the Ace Pro 2 is therefore slightly larger, brighter, and above all much sharper than that of the first Ace Pro. Now there are some who think that the flip-up display makes the camera too sensitive for an action camera. The fact is that the display is very rugged, and at least the folding mechanism is not very sensitive. Of course, a display can be damaged if the camera is dropped, but that can also happen with the Action 5 Pro. I will do a durability test of the display for my comparison video with the GoPro Hero 13 to find out how much this display can withstand. But I understand that the decision about the display is also an individual one. So what do you prefer? A large display at the back and a small display at the front, or a large flexible flip-up display? Personally, I go for the flip-up display. 1 point for the Ace Pro 2. Both cameras have a very similar and practical magnetic mount. The camera on the Action 5 Pro is not as tight as on the Ace Pro 2 and can be moved slightly on the mount. The magnets of the Action 5 are also stronger, which makes one-handed removal a little more difficult. In practice, however, I don't think this plays a major role. Therefore, 1 point for both cameras. The next category is clearly won by the Action 5 Pro. In 4K 30, it's capable of shooting for an incredible 3 hours. The Ace Pro 2 switches off after 1 hour and 42 minutes. The very long battery life is definitely one of the Action 5's greatest strengths in this comparison, whereby the Ace Pro 2 has an endurance mode in which it can shoot in 4K 30 for about 2 hours and 15 minutes. But if battery life is particularly important to you, you should therefore choose the Action 5 Pro or the dual battery bundle of the Ace Pro 2, which already contains 2 batteries in the packaging. 1 point for the Action 5 Pro. While the Action 5 Pro has a very long-lasting battery, the larger body of the Ace Pro 2 has advantages when it comes to overheating. It's clear that overheating is highly dependent on the usage. If there is airstream, for example when biking, you will normally not have overheating issues with any action camera. But here in the office without airstream and at around 20 degrees Celsius, the Action 5 in 4K 60 gives up after 1 hour and 3 minutes due to overheating. The Ace Pro 2 shoots until the battery is empty. In very warm conditions in summer and for long static shots, for example when fishing, the Ace Pro 2 will therefore be the better choice. Both cameras come with a number of unique features that the other camera does not have. For example, a small but important feature that only the Ace Pro 2 has, a basic pause feature when shooting. So you can pause a shot and then continue shooting and everything will be saved to the same file. You can control the Ace Pro 2 not only via voice control but also via gesture control. The AI Highlights Assistant automatically captures important and interesting highlights during a longer shot. You must therefore no longer search through the entire long clip for exciting moments when taking longer shots. The best highlights are recognized by the AI and are then presented to you. The Ace Pro 2 has a few additional recording modes. For example, a dedicated dashcam mode for use as a dashcam in the car, or a dedicated underwater mode for less distortion and better colors underwater. Both cameras capture the GPS data via remote control, Apple Watch or Garmin. The Ace Pro 2 can now also import all the data from your smartphone if you have it with you when recording and then display it in the shot. Both cameras also allow the connection of external microphones via Bluetooth, but only the Action 5 Pro allows the simultaneous connection of two DJI Mic 2 microphones. The Action 5 Pro features a pressure gauge which measures the altitude in the mountains, for example, or also cool, the depth when diving. The Action 5 offers a new tracking feature whereby the subject is held in the center of the frame, even if this naturally leads to the shot being cropped. And perhaps the best additional feature of the Action 5 Pro, it has 47 GB of internal memory, although you can of course also use additional SD cards. And especially for the internal memory, I give the point in this category to the Action 5 Pro. On the other hand, I still think that Insta360 has the better app. DJI has caught up and the Memo app now has a full-fledged editing tool in addition to an AI-controlled auto-edit feature. However, the editing tool in particular seems a little better in the Insta360 app. The Insta360 app also offers a variety of special features and effects, which are sometimes a gimmick, but sometimes also very cool and useful. This point goes to the Ace Pro 2. The Ace Pro 2 therefore wins with 12 to 8 points and takes the crown for the best action camera this year. However, it must be said that the Action 5 Pro is also a very good camera and has two important strengths with its long battery life and a smaller body. And then there's the price. The Action 5 Pro costs $350, while the Ace Pro 2 is slightly more expensive at $400. You can find a link to both cameras in the video description. Very often when you use the link for the Ace Pro 2, you will also receive a free accessory. Take also a look at the comparison to the GoPro Hero 13 and let me know what you think. And don't forget to give me a like as feedback if you found the video interesting. There will be more videos on the Ace Pro 2 and the Action 5 Pro, so stay tuned and see you next time.